We are students at FGCU and we are looking to find what students know about advocacy.
How do you define advocacy?
I would define advocacy as something that someone does on behalf of someone else.
I would define advocacy as like giving support to something, but also giving voice to maybe a smaller community or something that's maybe underrepresented and trying to bring attention to that cause or that event.
I would probably define advocacy as speaking on behalf of someone.
Advocate for either someone or a group of people.
And being able to empathize for them.
Not necessarily you by yourself can do it alone, but you do it with a group of people.
So not just simply sympathize, but be able to have an understanding of where they're coming from.
In their best interest to hopefully get something more or better something for someone else.
And then being able to maybe use your position or maybe your privilege, depending on who you are, to help them out, whether it's like speaking or through actions.
Have you ever advocated for anything before?
I have.
I definitely think I have.
I definitely have through different positions I've had on campus and off campus.
Through my roles in student government as well as programming board and other organizations on campus.
Because of where I work on campus and what I do, I advocate for a lot of people. I think like being a female in society, I also advocate for females every day. I've definitely have advocated for my peers when we work together, whether it's like in class or in like a work setting.
So advocating for expanding the library hours, 24 hours, 4 days a week. We did receive a little pushback just with funding, who's going to fund it, where the money's going to come from. But then overall, it's just pushing for student needs and what students need.
I was actually a cheer coach at Schuster High School, and also I was an intern there for a little bit. So really advocating for my students and getting what they needed, because sometimes like through the school or other situations, they didn't always like get the materials they needed, or I didn't get what I needed to be able to present to them and like teach them to the best of my ability. So really advocating on behalf of them and
making sure that they are accounted for.
Getting them the materials that they needed and the lessons that they could best learn from me.
And that they're being represented and stuff to the highest level at our university.
It was something I really wanted to do, and also for my cheerleaders, like getting them what they needed and getting space for them like was really important, because that's not something that they could necessarily do. And then just on campus through Director of Internal Recruitment, advocating for Myro Gammas and getting them like what they wanted and just things like that.
Have you ever faced any pushback when advocating for something, and who were some of the people that you received that pushback from?
Definitely some pushback, but
I think that there definitely has, and it's definitely a learning experience when you do advocate for groups that you don't necessarily represent.
Staying true and realizing like why I was doing it really pushed it forward. So at Estero High School, really working with administration, and instead of just like beating around the bush, but really just going like to the principal, to the vice principal, and not being scared as like an intern or just like an assistant coach to like go and approach them with issues that I saw that like if they could work with me and help assist it. And then here my advisor Rebecca has been really awesome. It's like helped me push forward different things that I want to do with them, and even if she maybe disagrees, like we come to a good like consensus.
There's a very fine line between being able to understand where people are coming from and then also experiencing those things. So if you haven't experienced them, then you definitely don't have the same understanding as someone who has. So when advocating for people personally, I don't think I have received any pushback, but that's because I think through my experiences I have enough knowledge to know how far I can go with that advocacy, and I will probably continue to learn and teach other people too. I've definitely seen other people where I'm like, that's kind of cutting it close, or like treading a very fine line, but it really is a learning experience for people, and I think that if you're willing to give people the opportunity to advocate, there will be times where you're gonna be like, okay, that may not have been the right approach, but that itself is a learning experience that's worth it.
Okay. Do you have any tips or tricks for people who are starting up their own type of advocacy?
I think the biggest thing would be to be respectful no matter the answer you receive from someone who might be higher or maybe more esteemed in a certain role than yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're passionate about something, staying true to that and remembering what you're doing it for and doing it more of like a selfless leadership position almost in a sense, and just don't give up, be respectful if you don't get the answers you want, but otherwise keep pursuing.
Being respectful is probably the biggest thing, because if you don't give respect to someone, even if you don't receive the answer that you might necessarily want, you might receive pushback and get more of a hard no than maybe a no that you can kind of work with to say maybe come back with a different plan at a later date. So being a little bit more respectful is just something that's key, because if you, again, are aggressive and are very standoffish, it's very hard to really overcome. accomplish anything.
I would say definitely read and have an understanding of what it is that you want to advocate for. There's a lot of things that we feel very strongly about because we're passionate, like because we're interested in it. And if you read about it and you have a very diverse understanding of it, not just through your own experiences, but through other people's experiences, then you are going to be much more successful at advocating for things.
So we found students just like me and you who are in leadership roles, practicing advocacy daily, and they share some tips and tricks with us that we can use to be advocates just like them.
I'm Nick Guzman and I approve this message.
My name is Amber Whitaker and I approve this message.
My name is Natalia and I approve this message.